Hi, Toilet Infidelity here. Yeah, I shaved my beard off. I did 3 shifts as Santa at the mall, and now I want to go back to be able to licking the egg yolk off my plate in the morning without getting it in my beard. So I've cut it off. This is probably the way it's gonna be for most of the time until maybe next fall when I have to start growing it again for Santa at the mall, because boy, that was fun. I love little kids. Although they gave me kind of a cold, but oh well, that's the way it happens. Back to business. Today we're going to talk about a very famous headphone, really, or the latest version of a very famous headphone. This is the Etymotic ER4 XR and SR. These are single balanced armature driver in-ear headphones. And they've been around in a couple of iterations for a long time. Back in 1992 when I started Headroom, quite soon after that we got wind of the Etymotic ER4. At the time, actually, it very quickly became the ER4S and the ER4B, the S for stereo and the B for binaural. The B was tuned so that it would be absolutely neutral when listening to something recorded on a dummy head, and the S was tuned to be a little warmer sounding. The B actually had a rise in the high frequencies relative to the S that started at about 2 kilohertz and was about 5 dB over the S at 10K. So it had a good lift and a tilt upwards in the high frequencies. Customers very quickly were giving feedback that that headphone was too bright, and Etymotic come out with the S model that had the reduced high frequencies, and that sold quite well for a year or so. But the problem with those headphones were they were somewhat inefficient. The original ER4S had a resistor in the body of the Y cable split at the headphone, and what Etymotic did was took the resistor out so that it would be more efficient and would be louder. And in the process of taking that resistor out, it also created a downward tilt in the high frequencies, about 3 or 4 dB starting at 2K, and 3 or 4 dB down by the time I got to 10K. But it was more efficient, and it was also a little warmer, and people liked that because people thought, even the ER4S in general, people thought the ER4S was still a little bit bright. And that's the way it stood for a long time. Etymotic developed all sorts of other lower cost versions, similar versions of the headphone, of a single balanced armature driver headphone, some for with mic and remote on the cable so that you could use it with a cell phone. Some were for kids. So there was a few other iterations, and then just recently they came out with the new ER4SR for studio reference and XR for extended response. And the difference between those two headphones is the SR, the studio reference, is about the same, quite much the same as the ER4S, but the ER4XR has a lift in the bass. It tilts upward a little bit, kind of a very wide bump that's centered at about 60 hertz, but it's very wide. It comes down to the bass line in the mid-range at about 400 hertz, and it's about 4 or 5 dB warmer in the lowest octaves than the ER4S. Before I get to the sound quality, I'm going to go give you a quick run through of the headphone. Some of the other differences from previous models is that now the enclosure of the headphone, I got to get it to focus on near like this. Come on, baby, focus. There you go. The body of the headphone is aluminum now, and it used to be plastic. It has the same dimensions, so the older tips that you can, if you've got custom tips for it, they still fit. So all the tips still fit. Mechanically, it's the same size. They have changed the connector on it. And also, because it's aluminum, it's less likely to break. The older ones would sometimes, the snout, the nozzle, I call it the nozzle, they call it the stem, would break sometimes. Sometimes it would break off if it got pushed on too hard, and sometimes it would crack when you inserted the filters. There's a little filter in the end here that actually tunes the headphone and keeps the wax out of the headphone. It does come with extra filters and a filter removal tool, so you can replace the filters if they get dirty. And if they get wet, they'll close off completely. So if you ever get it wet and the sound goes away, don't worry. All you have to do is take the filter out and replace it, and it'll probably work again. Also, the new versions have a MMCX connector here. This allows it to, be the cable to be easily removed and replaced. The old ones had a 2-pin connector that was pretty hard to get out. This MMCX connector will not is a little custom, and there probably are not aftermarket cables available for it. Fortunately, I find the cable to be really excellent. It's about just shy of 5 feet long. The headphone parts of the cable, the earphone connectors on the cable, are a nice thin twisted pair. It has a very small but effective slider on it, so you can tighten it up. Typically, the way I wear them is to put them in my ears like this, and they have to go deep in the ear, and then to loop the cable up and around the top of your ears so that it comes down below your chin, and then cinch it up. And you don't have to cinch it up tight. It should feel pretty loose. You should almost not feel it. But this will stop any microphonics from coming up the cable and getting into there, so you don't hear it when it rubs up against something. And I found them very comfortable and very easy to wear. I like the smaller of the triple flange tips. There are a number of different tips that Etymotic provides when you get the earphones that you can use. The foamies are okay, but personally I prefer the smaller of the triple flange tips. At the Y joint of the cable, there is also an aluminum housing here. This does not have any resistors in it anymore, but and it's nice and sturdy. It's got Etymotic laser etched on it. The cable itself is a nice supple cable. I think it's a good choice for cable. It lays flat. It seems fairly dead, and the 90-degree angle connector does have a detent on it, or a narrow part on it, so it can get in through the covers of a cell phone to the connector without interfering. So that's pretty nice. Personally, I prefer 45-degree angle connectors, but it's got a good strain relief on it, so that's fine. It also comes with this case where you can put the headphones and all your accessories. It comes with this is the filter tool and all the little filters in its container. It has a 3.5 millimeter to 1/4 inch headphone jack. The case is kind of large, though. It's good because it can hold all the accessories and stuff, but it's kind of bulky to carry around for every day. Etymotic does have a small pouch that costs $4, and I would highly recommend one of those. It's a very small pouch, probably about this big, and much better for just throwing the stuff in your pocket to move it around. Also, these headphones, I should talk a little bit about the insertion. These are deep insertion headphones, so they go far into your ear canal. They go to the bony section of the ear canal, and that's important because if you put your fingers over your ears and just close the ends of your ear canals, you'll hear that your voice gets very much louder. And that's because you're sealing the ear canal, and the outer part of the ear canal is fleshy, and as vibrations happen from your voice, it very slightly changes the shape of the ear canal, and therefore the volume, and therefore the only place for that air to go as the volume changes is to the eardrum, because the eardrum is compliant, makes the eardrum move in and out, and of course that makes sound for you. So when you cover your ears, the sound gets louder, and that's called the occlusion effect. Now, the thing about deep insertion IEMs is they seal all the way into the bony part of the ear canal. There's about halfway down the ear canal, there's a place where the skin is right on bone. And if you get the ear tip to seal in that spot, then the ear canal, the fleshy part of the ear canal, won't be able to vibrate and change shape because the tip is all the way at the bony section. And so when you put these headphones in, and if they're inserted correctly, you'll have less, it won't completely go away, but you'll have less of this occlusion effect. What that means is the noise floor on these headphones is very low. If you don't have a deep seal IEM, what happens is just your breathing, your heartbeat, of course any crunching sounds you make with your mouth if you're eating, they'll be quite loud. But if you have it all the way into the bony section, that means the noise level of these body noises will be less, and you'll have a lower noise floor when you're listening. Also, and for a similar reason, outside sound coming to your ear, if you have a shallow insertion tip, outside vibrations can vibrate the ear canal, and even though you've blocked off the end of the ear canal, the occlusion effect will amplify some of the outside sounds, and that way therefore you don't get as much isolation as if you put a tip all the way to the bony part of the ear canal, and then you'll get less of this outside vibration transmitted in. So these headphones are extremely good for very detailed low noise listening because you don't have the body sounds, and also very good for very high isolation. These have pretty much the maximum amount of isolation that you can get. Isolation can never be complete because sound will come and vibrate your skull, and that bone conducted information will always be able to get, will always vibrate the inner ear bits and cause it to have a little sound. So you can never get complete isolation from outside noise. And then the other last thing there is that you can get custom tips for these earphones. As you can see, it's hard to get those tips off. They also worked on that over the years because people would, in the early days, people would sometimes end up with ear tips in their ear canal. This is a custom ear tip that I had made years and years and years ago for Etymotic headphones, and it has a little hole in it, and you can put the Etymotics in there, and then you've got a custom tip, and at that point it's quite a bit more comfortable, although I don't think the isolation is quite as good because I don't think this really couples to the bony part of the ear canal as well. But anyway, it's more comfortable for sure. And yes, you'll have to work a little bit on getting it comfortable. You got to select the right tips. Some people can never really get it comfortable enough, in which case a custom tip is the way to go. But with the assortment of tips, I've found that most people can find a relatively comfortable fit, even with a deep insertion. In terms of sound quality, this headphone is famous for having amazingly good treble response. And Etymotic is a research company, a company that makes tools for audiometric research. So they make, very early in 1982, they made a similar type of insert earphone, although the transducers were in little boxes and the sound went up a tube to the insert part. But they've been making transducers for putting sound into ears. They've also been making microphones, capillary microphones, and all sorts of microphone devices to put in people's ears. So Etymotic is a company that builds equipment for audiometric researchers or audiometry. So they have a very long history of working with ear canals, and they know a lot about how the human hearing system works. And as a result, they've been able to tune this headphone very, very well to match the impedances and stuff in the ear canal so that the treble is extremely clean. And really, this headphone is an extraordinarily clean sounding headphone. There's no harshness in the treble. The cymbals have a very natural tone. You can hear exactly what's going on. It doesn't get washy or hazy or anything. And so it's very, very good. And then they're experts across the frequency response ranges, of course, and this headphone has a single balanced armature driver, and I guess as a result of both their expertise and having a single driver, the sound is extremely coherent. There's no sense of everything is integrated. There's no sense of the bass being separate from this, or any kind of confusion. It's very, very coherent and sounding. The dynamics are quite good. The bass is just a hair soft sounding. Maybe there's a little distortion down there, not much, but maybe there's enough just to soften it just a bit. But bottom line, the punch and dynamics across the board, the microdynamics and macrodynamics, really across the board are very, very good on these headphones. The only place that I'd give them any sort of a significant knock is that the image is not very wide, but it's okay. But it's not very deep at all. The depth of the image is very shallow, and I don't know why that is exactly, but they don't image very deep, and that can cause the audio image to be a little bit cardboard cutout like, not having this depth. It becomes a little bit kind of flat and not as rich and enveloping as one might like. But you don't get better until you get multi-balanced armature drivers up in quite a bit higher prices. So at the price of this headphone, regardless of its multi-balanced armature drivers or single drivers, boy, I think this thing does a great job of being coherent throughout the range. Okay, so the Etymotic ER4XR with the bass boost is going to go up on the Wall of Fame, and it's going to replace the Etymotic ER4 PT that's up there from years back. And the ER4SR, the studio reference, I find really doesn't have enough bass to be satisfying for me. There are certainly people out there who think it's a little bit more coherent sounding, even if the bass wasn't as tight. I don't know that I heard that exactly. I really couldn't get past the lack of bass, so I much preferred this headphone for listening pleasure. It's still a great headphone, and some people may find a preference for it. But it's not going to go up on the Wall of Fame. I do think that audio professionals are better served by having the extra bass boost. I do think that that's more neutral. I think in terms of how we perceive it, that the ER4SR seems a little thin, and so I wouldn't call it as neutral as this headphone. In fact, I'd like a little bit more bass than what I got on this headphone. So it's not bass heavy at all. It's in fact to my ears a little bit bass shy. But a great headphone at $349 and very durable, and I think it's one of those headphones that you can buy and have for a long time. Like, I still have my ER4 S's from years and years ago, and they continue to work just fine. One note I will say, though, just as a cautionary note to folks, don't drop and allow any balanced armature headphone to hit the ground hard. So please be careful with your headphones and don't drop them. Leave the tips on, because it'll act like a little bouncy surface, so it doesn't have as hard a hit if it does hit the ground like that. And also a note for current owners, there is a upgrade program for your ER4S, ER4B, I guess, ER4 PT. So any of the ER4 category, there you'll have to look at the article on Interfidelity, get the link to the upgrade page. There's requirements, different prices depending on whether you're in or out of warranty and whether you have your proof of purchase. So definitely think that this is a legendary headphone and continues and will continue to be a legendary earphone. It's a really nice piece of gear, the Etymotic ER4XR. Okay, that's it, and we'll see you guys next time.